Hello everyone, welcome to the Whistling Hermit's One Card Spread series. Note that this video is divided into three parts. A short introduction, which we are doing right now. Part 1, which is a descriptive study of the card for the day. And Part 2, which is a reading from the Handbook of the Tarot of A.E. Waite from AGM Urania. If you want to navigate directly to any of the three parts mentioned, just click on their respective links at the timestamp provided in the description of this video. This video series is primarily intended for learning how to read the tarot. However, you can also use this as a card reading for the day. This is a timeless reading, so if you are watching this now, its message might be for you. In this series, we will be using the Giant Rider Waite Tarot deck. We will also be using the Handbook of the Tarot of A.E. Waite from AGM Urania. The first part of the video will be a descriptive study of a specific card in the tarot. We will describe what we see and the insights and feelings we gather from what we see. Now, the first part is characterized by spontaneity. We allow the cards to speak to us regardless of the generally accepted meaning of the card. By doing this, we hope to increase our intuitive capacity for reading the tarot cards. In the second part, we will be reading the description of the card taken from the Booklet of the Tarot of A.E. Waite by AGM Urania. If you intend to use this as a timeless reading, you can randomly choose any card in the series that resonates with you. An alternative approach is to shuffle a Rider Waite Tarot deck and pick a card randomly. You can then choose the card in the video series that corresponds to the card you picked. Note that this series is a work in progress and it might take some time for the 78 cards to be completely read. So, without any further delay, let us proceed to the card for the day. Welcome to part 1 of our one card spread series, and our card for today is the King of Swords. It's nice now when you look at it. There's a certain certain beauty in the card in a certain sense. I find it interesting because I see the contrast again of between the masculine and the feminine. When you look at it here, both the king and the queen are holding the sword firmly, as if they make sure that what is true and what is just is being held. No, the contrast is that when you look at the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Swords has the sword upright. The king is a little bit sideways. No, the queen is more idealistic in her asking people to maintain what is true and what is just. Somehow, the sword of the king is a little bit tilted to a side. I think it is for me the practicality of the king, because of his experience in implementing authority or implementing the law. He's a little bit more grounded and more realistic with the situation. That yes, it is true that it's very important to really impose what is true and what is just, but somehow tilting the sword for me symbolizes that although he also imposes and really emphasizes the importance of justice and truth, he is sort of also guided by the reality of the situation. That somehow the firmness, it is less firm because somehow he is grounded in reality. He also accepts that some situations tend to make things much different than what should be ideal, and so somehow he's able to adaptability there is more adaptability on the part of the king, more flexibility, because somehow he is more grounded to the reality of ruling the kingdom, while the king maintains what is ideal. And so there is a good balance between the two of them. While she reminds the king of the importance of the ideal, the king at the same time balances what is ideal to what is reality. In a certain sense, yeah, because if we are just dependent on what is ideal, we might lose the compassion. Although the queen extends her hand, there is the reality also of being able to apply what is ideal to reality. The extending of the hand is quite a contrast also between the king and the queen. The queen extends her hand while the king keeps his hand on top of his leg. No? It's for me, this is the openness of the queen, which extends. The king has sort of like a reserve also. So this is like a king maintaining a boundary so that he can continue to rule with authority and be able to really apply what is just and what is true. So here you can see again the masculine energy being able to maintain more boundaries than the feminine energy. It's not a sign, it's not a sign of weakness, because being able to extend the hand in empathy is strength also, and being able to keep a certain boundary is also strength. Both are good qualities, and I guess the card of the temperance comes into play in this area, wherein we should be able to maintain a balance between empathy and at the same time maintaining good boundaries, and at the same time not losing the ideal, but also being able to apply the ideal to the reality of the situation. But the beauty of the two cards is that both the queen and the king shows symbols of the butterfly. There are butterflies here, and I'm not sure if also in the crown, but there are signs of butterflies also in the card of the king, which again shows transformation. And the key to the transformation is being able to be in touch always with what is true and what is just. By being able to maintain this dedication to what is true and what is just, it encourages the transformation of the world. It creates balance, especially for those who are unable to stand for the right. It allows us to keep what is right and what is just for the world. So somehow this is what I see from here. And the beautiful thing about these two, the king and the queen, is that they are in the midst of the world, in the midst of creation. You can see trees, you can see clouds, the skies, the birds. They are in the midst of nature. So these two kings, and the king and the queen, are in the midst of the kingdom that they are serving. They are not the type of personalities who just hide in the castle. No, from what I reflect on this one is that these two are always in touch with the kingdom that they serve. The beautiful thing about it also is, in contrast to the queen, the king has a sort of like a veil behind him. It reminds me of the high priestess in the temple, where there is a veil that keeps a certain secret behind. I guess it's the reality of a king that rules. He doesn't show all the cards. It's like when you play the cards, when you are playing cards, you don't show all your cards. You have some things hidden behind. And I guess this is one of the reality of implementing things. You cannot just be too open. Here the queen is very open. The king, in implementing his rules, there are certain things that he has to keep quiet, certain mystery that he has to maintain, that allows him to be able to apply what is right. But when you see behind the veil is something that is clear and true. And with the sword, somehow, you would know that even if he doesn't say everything, everything that might be hidden is something that is related to what is true. Maybe at the same time also, the high priestess is like in a temple wherein there is the mysterious veil behind. So for me also, this symbolizes that the king is a person who also travels to the inner world, one who contemplates also. I guess a good ruler is a person who is not just pure action, but a ruler who also stops and meditates and reflects on his life and the decisions that he makes. So in a certain sense for me, the veil also symbolizes that the king is also in touch with the divine, in touch with something spiritual. He has a spiritual world. The inner world of a person is something that is very sacred and something that is hidden from the outer world, from the other people around them. So for me, the veil symbolizes the inner life of the king. Here is a king who rules not just by the mind, not just with the mind, not just with the heart, but also with the spirit. For me, this thin veil represents, or this curtain behind him represents this inner life that he also takes with him. Even when he's out in the world, you see, he's out in the world and yet there is this curtain behind him. So it means that he, even if he's working out into the world, he maintains this contemplative or this meditative aspect of himself amidst the work that he is doing. So he is able to maintain a balance between the inner world and the outer world. Again, this reminds us of the card of temperance, wherein the angel has one foot dipped into the stream and the other foot touching the ground, being grounded also. So for me, it's this. There's a balance of outside activity and inner journey. He's able to maintain it amidst his work as a king. Well, that's what I can see from this card. I guess we can now go to part 2 of the King of Swords. Welcome to part 2 of our one card spread series, and our card for today is the King of Swords. Let us now read from the booklet of the Tarot of A.E. Waite from AGM Urania. Like justice, in the Major Arcana, he looks right at us, the only court card to do so. He challenges us to do the right thing, to act on principle, to be a force for justice. Unlike the Queen, his sword does not point straight up. This does not signify confusion or corruption, though that might come in the reversed position, but rather his responsibility to make decisions and enforce laws, for he is the head of the government, a position intellectual swords take very seriously. Thus, he holds a dual purpose, symbolized by two birds behind him, as compared to the Queen, who is more single-minded. His first and most overriding purpose is principle. All his authority means nothing without it. The second is practicality, the ability to lead successfully. He is the most practical of the kings, but also the most dedicated. As with the Queen, butterflies adorn his crown and his high austere throne. His true dedication is to transform the world. divinatory meanings: authority, power, decision-making, but also emotional distance, responsibility. Warning, advice. Power leads to temptation, possibly corruption. Action. Accept the responsibility of making decisions for others. Well, that concludes part 2 of our one-card spread series. I hope it has been a fruitful experience for all of you. Until next time.